G'day, ZiggyD here. It's day 2 of the Reaper of Souls expansion pack, and in this video I want to share with you guys the build I've been running on my Demon Hunter, and also some of the progression and thoughts on the Demon Hunter in the new expansion pack. I've been getting asked a lot about the build I've been running, and it's been pretty successful so far for getting me through the game pretty quickly and already into Torment 1 here at day 2, so it's going pretty well. Basically, I've oriented the Demon Hunter around being very, very bursty. I've made other burst specs before, but the spec I've got now really has some nice synergies, and it also uses Vengeance pretty nicely, and a few of the passives and things like that end up connecting together pretty well to give me some really high burst damage to be able to kill things very quickly beyond my actual DPS levels as well. So I'm running currently about 500k DPS, and you'll see me get crits in the video for like 5 to 7 million sometimes when I get each of those little different things to synergize together that I'll explain in a moment. But that means I can help either when I'm running with a party, help burst down elites very quickly, especially because I have an item that gives extra damage to elites as well that I found today. And when I'm running solo, I can kill stuff pretty quickly, even on Torment 1 with the increased amount of life, even though I haven't, broken the 1 million DPS mark or anything like that yet. Still doing very effectively with just that 500 million. Overall, I feel like the Demon Hunter is in a really good place. People asking me, why is no one else playing Demon Hunter? Why is there so few people playing Demon Hunter? Demon Hunter has a history of being bottom tier, pretty much, in terms of Diablo 3 characters. She's always been, she's had some interesting bursts and some cool applications. It's always been pretty fun to play. But in terms of sustained farming in the previous metagame, yeah, not so good, not so good. But Demon Hunter has been changed quite a bit in terms of her abilities. A lot of the abilities have been buffed. The new gearing situation in Reaper of Souls really suits the Demon Hunter really well. The new Vengeance skill fits in perfectly within the build. Vengeance is all about burst and that firepower, and having, although it's a long cooldown, having burst when you kind of need it when you get to those big packs, which is perfect. Vengeance fits in really nicely with a lot of different builds. And the metagame has changed. That's the most important thing. Instead of just farming Keep Depths over and over again or something like that, we're running around to different bounties, killing an elite at the end of each bounty, or killing a boss or something like that. And then in rifts, you're fighting fewer mobs overall, but pretty dense packs of elites every now and then, so that burst damage really comes in handy. So although Demon Hunter might not be quite as strong as, say, wizards in those really dense areas, her burst makes up for it in a lot of those other areas, and her mobility is always really, really good. So I'm pretty happy with where the Demon Hunter is. So let's switch on over, and I'll explain the different skill setup I'm doing and take a look at my gearing, and maybe you guys will find that interesting and helpful if you're looking to play some Demon Hunter yourself. Alrighty, so here's my ravishing looking Demon Hunter. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the new transmog system. Comes together pretty nicely. I was kind of playing around with different things, and I was like, hold on, the gold skin looks pretty good. What if it's black and gold look? But this isn't a show about fashion. Well, maybe it is. Maybe it is. Diablo 3 is kind of just dress-ups for men action RPGs. But I've been having a good time with it. It goes with the new wings too. But the first thing you guys are probably wondering before I even get into the build is, how does he have 3 wolves? What is going on there? That's the #1 question when people tune into the stream lately. Well, I found this particular cloak here, the Cloak of the Wolf. It allows you to have up to 3 wolf companions, so pretty badass. It's not a bad cloak. It's got some move speed on it as well. Really reminiscent of another cloak that's in the game, even the same art for some reason. But we get 3 wolves. Now, wolves themselves deal pretty decent damage, 150 weapon damage, and they kind of do it in a cleaving AoE as well, so they're pretty nice companions, and having 3 of them means that you have a really nice sort of tanking barrier when soloing, and in a party they contribute a lot of extra DPS, and being encouraged to play around with wolves actually led me to discover more of this spec, so this was a pretty significant legendary to find. So, let's before we take a look at the rest of my gearing and everything like that, let's take a look at the spec and sort of explain what's going on. So, first up we use Entangling Shot Justice as served. Now this is mostly to generate hatred, but Entangling Shot has some really other key components in the build. Firstly, it's CC. It groups mobs together, which makes them easier to AoE down, especially when using very small AoE skills, which is what the Demon Hunter tends to excel at. So Entangling Shot groups mobs together, slows them down, keeps you and your party safe, and also generates hatred for you. However, when you also put in the passive Colder Weak, pretty much everything you get 20% increased damage at. Straight up. As soon as you're hitting things with a Tangling Shot, 20% increased damage, then when you follow up with any other attacks, extra 20% damage. It's very nice, and the synergy between Tangling Shot and Colder Weak is just amazing. So really, really good stuff there. Next up, I use Cluster Arrow loaded for Bear, the highest burst damage skill that Demon Hunter has, really. It's all about that single shot, so basically we entangle them together, and then we go for the cluster arrows there and deal a crap ton of damage with that. It's 770 weapon damage at the point, and then additional grenades for 220 each. And that 770 combined with the 20% increase from Cold Weak gets very, very powerful there. So loaded for Bear is great there in this particular spec. I'm using Volt with Tumble, and that's just for mobility. Tumble's just a great mobility spell, nothing else much to do, to think about there. You could use any of the runes if you want. I prefer Tumble just because it makes that Discipline cost a little bit lower, and you don't want to run out of Discipline mid-fight and not be able to Smokescreen, so that's pretty important, I think. Smokescreen with Healing Vapors is Demon Hunter's probably #1 healing skill. Not only does it make you invisible and immune to damage and allow you to sort of escape out of various things, it also gives you 15% heal, basically. 15% life regeneration while invisible, and we're invisible for 1 second, so 15% over 1 second is a pretty decent sized heal. Next up, I use Vengeance with Side Cannons. Any of the runes are pretty good, really, but I like Side Cannons a lot because it has an additional heal, 1.5% of your max life per hit, enemy hit, so that ends up being very, very good when you want to stand still and just put out a lot of damage. And you don't want to have to kite when you're in Vengeance, you want to really be able to stand still and just really unload that damage. So Side Cannons also adds a bit of extra damage, and that healing is pretty nice. I think the damage with Side Cannons is very consistent as well, so I quite like the Side Cannons rune with this particular spec. And then I use Companion with the Wolf Companion. Now, wolves themselves, as I said, obviously I'm using this cloak. You don't need to be using the cloak though. The wolf is still a good choice because when you activate it, for 10 seconds you get 30% increased damage. So you'll kind of see. I'll bring everything together at the end. Now, in terms of other passives, I use Ambush. Now, there's a few options you can use instead of Ambush. I'm finding Ambush to be maybe one of the better ones after a bit of playing around and a bit of discussion about it today. Archery is always okay, and currently I'm using 2 one-handed crossbows just because that's what I've been able to get a hold of, and the 5% crit chance from that isn't amazing. It isn't amazing, and the 1 extra H per second also isn't amazing. I think with a crossbow it's good, and with a bow 8% increased damage is okay as well, but archery is only ever okay now, I think. Other options are like Sharpshooter. I'm not really a big fan of Sharpshooter. I don't think it gives you enough. It gives you a guaranteed crit the first time you fire into a pack, but since we're usually leading with Entangling Shot, then following up with Cluster Arrow, I actually don't really like it all that much in this particular spec, but that is another option. Otherwise, you could probably go with any really of the other ones you wanted to in this. I think I've sort of settled on Ambush because usually mobs are still above 75 health after a few of these guys, so we throw down some Entangling Runes, then we unload the rest of our burst damage, which I'll talk about in a sec, and we get an extra 40% damage for that initial burst, and that helps get things very low very quickly. So it works okay in a party, works really well solo because you can almost one-shot things basically just through that initial unload. Blood Vengeance helps fuels our Cluster Arrow needs, and again, I'm not really sure what else I could use instead of this. You could use just Archery instead of Blood Vengeance. There's some flexibility in passives, and I highly recommend Perfectionist. It's a really nice all-rounder, reduces your discipline costs, and increases your life armor resistances by a whopping 10%. And when you're already snacking quite a lot of it, your toughness goes through the roof with this thing. Just out of curiosity, 5.1 million toughness compared to, if I take it off, 4.1 million. So an extra 1 million toughness just for that one passive there is pretty incredible. Perfectionist is a great passive, in addition to the discipline change. So I think it's pretty nice, helps you squeeze that extra value out of your gear. So let's actually go somewhere. We'll just go somewhere. Let's go to the cemetery and go down, and I'll show you how to sort of operate this spec, how to use its burst damage to the greatest potential. So I'll find a pack somewhere, find more than a few zombies hopefully. Now the wolves will do a pretty good job of like keeping things in a group and also killing stuff. You see they deal pretty decent damage. I actually have some increased companion damage on my shoulders here, which since I have 3 wolves is actually kind of worth it. It's not great, but it's kind of worth it with having 3 of those wolves at once. So alright, we'll just go with these guys. Basically what we do is we pop some of these guys, then we activate our bat, and then we unload our cluster arrows. Everything's dying too quickly, let's go find another pack. Everything's dying too quickly, let's go find another pack. And this is Torment 1 in day 2. I think we've been able to progress pretty well. Okay, here we go. So basically, I'll pop a few of those guys, I'll pop the bat, which unfortunately is on cooldown at the moment, so we'll have to do without, and then you just unload your cluster arrows until everything's dead and start going again. Usually what you'll do, I'll show you the timing with a bat on the next pack once that's come off cooldown, so I can show that fully. Here we go, here's another pack I can do it against. So basically, slow these guys down, apply your extra damage, pop your bat, unload all of your cluster arrows, everything dies. If they haven't died by this point, so it's an elite pack or something like that, you keep going until your until your wolves reach about 1/4 left, and then you unload cluster arrows again. So you'll actually see this little icon down the bottom here, spinning around. When it gets back to about 1/4, you should be almost fully regenerated in terms of hatred, and you can then unload a second round of cluster arrows there as well. So you get actually 2 rounds of cluster arrows before your your wolf 10-second 30% damage increase wears off, and you end up doing a lot of damage that way. And you'll see some pretty big crits as a result of this. Stacking a lot of crit multi through using the dual crossbows actually works out kind of nicely. But here's a cursed chest. We can do this for fun. So I'll save my cooldowns for a little while. I can use some of my hatred. Slay all enemies before timer ends. Is this going to be a very short and easy one? It looks like it is. Alright, that's kind of disappointing. I wanted one of those like hard ones, you know, one of the longer ones. But it seems like we're having a pretty cruisy time at the moment in here. Alright, let's see if we can find an elite pack. That might be the best example. Alright, here's a larger pack at least. We can probably do this. So I'll pop my back, I'll unload. I can also pop Vengeance at the same time. Vengeance will get the effect of the bat as well, so increasing our damage a lot. Bats are about to wear off. We'll just make sure we use all of our hatred before I keep saying bat, before the wolves wear off, because I'm so used to using bat. But before the wolf damage bonus wears off, we'll use it all up there. And that's pretty much that pack wiped out. So you can see the damage is very high, and it's very also fun, sort of snappy, bursty spec to play around with. And I think that's kind of the way that's really what Demon Hunter excels in. There's some sustained builds you can do in terms of damage, and I like playing Grenader specs, for example, and they can be very sustained damage oriented. But burst specs in Reaper of Souls just feels so good, especially with the addition of that Vengeance. It feels perfect, sort of all adds in there, and just being able to unload everything really quickly on a pack and just destroy it instantly sure is a lot of fun. So let's just go back to town here, and I'll sort of go through the rest of my gear and my Paragon point allocation so you guys can check that out as well. The wolves, oh! I thought we were going to get spat at then and interrupted our teleport. Okay, so the rest of the gear I'm running is pretty basic stuff. So far I've also found Unity, which gives increased damage against elites. That's pretty nice. Unity is quite good here for that increased damage against elites. The legendary effect, all damage taken is split between wearers of this item, is quite interesting. If you put one on your follower, you can split damage with your follower if you find a second Unity, so that's something interesting to sort of go with that. Also, if you have other members in your party, they can also be wearing it and splitting it there. I also got really lucky and found a Laoric Signet, this is a very nice ring, and it's also rolled 29% increased bonus experience, but nothing really to say about the spec just here. Now I'm using a pair of braces here with 5 damage percent on them, 14%, that's like 1% off perfect, and that helps both hatred, and cluster arrow and entangling shot improve its damage as well. So we get a lot of extra, 15%, 14% extra damage on both of these. So very nice if you can get any fire damage increased. And obviously if you can get any skill increase that affect entangling shot or cluster arrow, it's going to help you a lot as well. In terms of my crossbows, I've just been looking for ones with first I was looking for ones with over 2000 DPS and then socketing them, also hoping they had at least dexterity on them, but also dex and vite is very nice if possible, and then just crafting them up. But then later I was looking for ones with over 2200 DPS, and I think that's a good amount to shoot for rare crossbows until you can get your legendaries. So I'm using one here with 2240 and another one with 2240, and you'll start to see these after a while. Like after you farm for a while, you'll see one every now and then. It's not too hard to roll that. In fact, they can roll a bit higher than that. They can probably roll about like 2300, but you'll start to see some 2200s pretty frequently, and all you need is that dex, the socket as well, and you're good to go. So basically I just actually crafted the socket in both of these, I'm pretty sure. So and then I can, then you upgrade your green gems. As long as you got a decent amount of crit chance, you go for the crit damage. So stacking 44% crit chance and 400% crit damage means that we end up with very high DPS total overall. Other stuff I'm wearing is basically just very basic rares, just splitting up between defensive and offensive stats. Going for those main stats and all resist where possible, or any armor bonuses and stuff like that is very nice where I can. And also making sure to max out my move speed. I have 12% here, and I have 10% here. I actually might need to put a little bit into Paragon since I recently changed something. Movement speed is 22%, so I'll need to fix up my Paragons to add 3 more in there. But pretty basic stuff overall. When it comes to gems, I recommend greens for your weapons unless you have very low crit chance, in which case you want to go for rubies. So you want to go for emeralds if you have high crit chance, rubies if you have low crit chance. And in terms of your defensive one, so in your armor, I recommend socketing diamonds. All resist, 70 all resist is far better than 70 dex or 70 vitality. Way better. So socket those vitality, those all resist. That's 140 all resist, plus the 90 on the base pants there. That's some very resistant pants we're wearing right there. But pretty basic stuff, and this is kind of what you want to do in terms of your rares. You know, go for crit where you can, go for crit on these guys. You can see I've rolled crit on both my gloves here, stacking the crit damage through my weapons, and then getting crit wherever else I can as well, leading to a high crit total, and then we can stack that crit damage and feel pretty good about our damage. And this is basically the stepping stone into getting legendaries. It's all about hunting those legendaries in Reaper of Souls, but you need to get that good set of rares before you can start transitioning. Next up, we have my Paragon points. As I said, I wanted to put 3 points into move speed, so I'll make sure to do that. And then I want at least 10 into hatred to bring me to 100. I had 140 actually. It looks like I've got extra hatred now. I could probably even forego the hatred now, but you want to try and give yourself enough to get an extra round out of Cluster Arrow if you can. I think I'm... okay, this hasn't accepted yet. No, that's fine. Alright, 100. I think I'll go for 160. So there we go, that gives us a nice total like 40, 40, 40, 40. So that works out pretty well. And then I'll just spend the rest on dex just there. In terms of offense, you need to either choose crit or crit chance or crit damage, depending on which one gives you more DPS. So if you have very high crit chance already, you might want to go for crit damage, and vice versa. Attack speed's not so great in this, and cooldown reduction's not so great either. So you want to go one of those two, whichever gives you more DPS. Resist all is the most point efficient here, but you can pick life or armor if you have very high vitality or very high armor total. But resist all by default is the best one to go for. And then I've just been going for life on hit for sustain. Area damage is okay as well, and resource cost reduction is okay, but I think life gain on hit is probably best because that means you don't need to worry about getting so much on your gear, and you can just have a little bit of extra sustain. So anyway, hopefully that helps you guys out, my Demon Hunter buddies out. Good luck and have fun in Reaper of Souls. Playing a Demon Hunter in this has been a lot of fun, and I'm pretty keen to continue. So make sure you stop by the live stream if you want to see me upgrading the character in action and sort of like figuring out new specs and stuff like that, and I'll keep the coverage coming. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm Ziggy D, and thanks for watching.